Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about fertilization. So we've talked before about gametogenesis, how eggs and sperm are being produced. Let's talk about when they meet. So the sperm is going up through the uterus, up the fallopian tubes. At the same time, an egg has been ovulated, and it is going from the ovary into the fallopian tube, and that's where the two of them meet. And so here we have an egg, and it's being met by a bunch of sperm. How many sperm are we talking about here? Well, of the 200 million sperms that come through an ejaculation, basically only about 200 of them actually make it up there. And so we see one successful candidate here. Here's the flagellum. There is the acrosome. And there's the egg. And it's going to start to release its proteins and to tunnel in there. And so what has happened is that the egg has gone through meiosis 1. It's now a secondary oocyte. And when it meets the egg, it will transform itself through meiosis 2 into an ootid. So let's take a closer look at the egg there and see how it happens. In particular, we want to see how it is possible that the egg can get fertilized by a single sperm, but not by two sperms. If you had two sperms go in there, then the number of sets of chromosomes would be 3. That would be an infertile egg, and it wouldn't develop. So let's take a look here. So there is the egg proper. There's the nucleus there, and here's all the cytoplasm. And the cytoplasm is actually filled with a bunch of stuff here called cortical vesicles. And we'll talk about those in just a second. They are surrounded by a membrane here, which is the zona pellucida. And then there's kind of an empty zone over here. And then you actually have kind of a second membrane here, which is the corona radiata. So think of it basically like you're camping, you're in a tent, and you've got a rain tarp over it. So there's really two membranes there. And the sperm will bind to this outer corona radiata. And what they want to do then is eventually tunnel their way through the zona pellucida, and they're going to then enter in through that membrane there, the plasma membrane. So once again, we have an outer membrane, the corona radiata. Then you have kind of a dead space, the zona pellucida. And then you have the actual membrane of the egg, plasma membrane, which is where the sperm is heading to. And you can see in this picture here, you've got, 200 sperm or something like that, all trying to get in there, but only one is actually going to make it in there. And the minute the one makes it in there, the other guys will get locked out. So how is that going to happen? Okay, let's look at the steps of fertilization. So first of all, we've got the arrival of sperm. And like I said, probably about, 200 sperm arrive there. And they're attracted by a chemical signal that the egg lets out. And they swim up the oviduct. By the way, oviduct is another word for fallopian tube. The next thing is that the sperm then bind to it, and they break through the follicular layer of cells, and they try and enter into that dead zone there, the zona pellucida. So let's go back up here. Suppose that one of them, let me erase this guy here so we don't get misled. Let's suppose that one lucky sperm enters into the zona pellucida there, okay? And all the other guys are close behind. The minute that guy enters into the zona pellucida, the acrosomal reaction is triggered. Now, what is that? Remember that the capsule surrounding the sperm is called the acrosome, and it's filled with a bunch of enzymes, proteases, the major one probably being lysosome. And this enzyme starts to help it to tunnel through the zona pellucida so that the sperm will eventually hit into the membrane and enter into the proper part of the egg. So it's the acrosomal reaction which lets it get through that zona pellucida. Once it does that, it releases the chromosomes from the sperm, and that enters into the egg. This causes a fusion of the egg nucleus, its chromosomes, with the sperm's chromosomes, and this triggers what we call the cortical reaction. So let's go back there again. Inside the cytoplasm, so now here comes the DNA from the sperm, are all of these corticals. They are all filled with special enzymes. And what happens is that they then migrate outward from the cell to the zona pellucida, and they enter in here. Now, the zona pellucida is actually an area where there are connections like this, right, between the corona radiata and the actual plasma membrane of the cell. And what's going to happen then, should I get another color here so we can see? What's going to happen then is that the cortical vesicles are going to release enzymes which will break all of these attachments. And just like the rain tarp on a tent, it'll then cause the corona radiata to just drift away. But all those 200 sperm was still attached to it. So just like mosquitoes on the rain tarp of a tent, you then shake it, throw away the tarp, and they all fly away. So only the one sperm entered in there. This is called the cortical reaction. So those cortical vesicles then release their contents, and they cause the zona pellucida to become detached, which stops the entry of other sperm. Finally, now that the other sperm are away, the nuclei of the sperm and the egg fuse, and then mitosis actually begins, where the egg starts to double, 1 cell to 2 cells to 4 cells to 8 cells to 16, 32, and so on, till we eventually make an embryo.